marketing. And Patty, if you just came back, we are actually just doing an activity real quick. The request approval workflow.
Yeah, I've been here the whole time. I don't think you were able to hear me.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so have you been able to kind of build out that second part, the VP approval section, or have you began?
Yeah, I've been watching what you're doing and following along.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, excellent. So yeah, I'm at the VP part. I am going to assign it to myself just for the sake of kind of checking this out. And yeah, perfect. Okay. Request approval. There we go. And then if approved, it's actually let's go action.
Now, where are you on the step list?
Sure. So we are under the activity request approval workflow.
Right, I'm there.
And then
so.
we are under the add actions according to manager's decision.
Okay.
And then specifically number 3 is where you start leveraging the VP.
Okay.
So you can hit that or attempt that one and then also add actions, which is the next activity below it.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do I want to do here? Let someone requester manager. Okay. And now it's approved. District manager. All right. All right. Give folks a couple more moments, a few more moments. All right. So it's been about 5 minutes or so. Alessandro, any success?
Yeah, I didn't get to the end actually, but I'm trying to interpret the request and then going straight on the process. But I will happily look at you and then and see what you have done.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. And also too, let's I'm going to save mine here. Keep in mind too, if especially if you're doing this in between sessions or in between trainings, there isn't a completed one that you can
Okay,
reference.
perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Out of here again a little bit. How are you making out, Patty?
I'm doing pretty good. I can't read what's supposed to be in the email though, so I'm
yeah.
kind of yeah.
Yeah, that's all kind of customizable. I think the key point is just to remember you can leverage those or pull in column information using these squiggly brackets.
Okay.
So we put it around the column header for the requester email, for the ID, for the manager email. I think that's the key point there. You can kind of fill in the text with whatever would be pertinent in your position for your role. All right. Do we think it's okay if I continue to move forward?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's all right. Patty, would you like another moment?
Oh, no, you can go ahead.
All right, yeah. So again, we have the built out one, but at the very least, I'm going to zoom out just to kind of see the workflow overall. Yours should look something like mine. So we had our first half, setting off the trigger, reaching out to the manager. What happens if it's declined or approved? Well, if it's approved, it's headed over to the VP. What happens if it's declined or approved? And essentially what we're doing based on those approvals and declines is alerting the requester. And then when we're alerting folks under the VP, another thing you want to keep in mind is that we are alerting, and as I zoom in here, we are alerting the requester as well as the manager. Because if it's approved, then the manager already approved it, and we want to let them know that the whole process has been approved or the whole process has been declined by our VP. Excellent. So I'm going to save that here. And actually, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so we can get a better look at this. So we have now built out our creative request workflow. But we may also want to assign a designer. Right? We want to automate the process of getting a designer assigned. And we actually have a workflow already built out here. So I'm actually going to double click this to look into it. And now we see, all right, well, when the designer, the assigned designer column, so we're setting our trigger as when rows are changed, specifically when the assigned designer changes to any value. And we're going to run this automation when triggered. Well, what do we want to do? We want to alert them. All right.
Right.
So going back to our wheel here in the slides, I'm going to back up a little bit. Here we go. VP is approving it. Now the PM saying, all right, well, I need to make sure I assign a designer. And now I'm going to make sure that they are alerted, they meaning the new assigned designer, that they have a new request to manage. So we've used that second form of automation to leverage this third gear, to build in the assignment by our PM of that new designer. And that's just with simply a trigger and a action. Again, we see here leveraging the squiggly brackets, pulling in information, letting them know to reach out to the requester. So we're speaking to our designer, telling them reach out to the requester within 1 to 2 days to discuss the proofing process. So we've linked our designer to our requester to begin the proofing process, which is where we are headed right now. So as long as you both feel comfortable with what we've talked about to this point, let's get into proofing. All right, so I'm going to X out of here. And now, well, actually, let's look at the process before I get into proofing. So let's go into the form, manage forms. Let's actually open the form. I'm going to submit it once more. Let's call this Project Venus. manager email, set myself, we'll set the public details, part 2, new request. You can follow along with me if you want to try out your workflow approval. And we're going to submit. So, success, it's been captured. I'm going to X out of here. I'm going to file, oh, there it is. There's that refresh. And now we've added it there. Once again, that submission, letting us know it's submitted to the manager. And if I come up to the notifications, oh, here is that request, since I set myself as the approver. Or I set myself as the manager, I should say. Right? So as long as you set yourself as the manager, you should see something under notifications as I go into my email, as well as your email. I got a couple of things. You can ignore these down here. And I had done that from here's my first approval request, Project Mars, and then here's the one for Project Venus. So let's kind of work down through that. So here's the information we put into the cell. There's my requester's email. Now, again, I'm kind of talking to myself here. So this would be the requester's or this would be the manager's email, and then this would be the requester's email. So hi manager, the requester has submitted a new creative request marketing. There's that ID number getting pulled in. There's that information letting us know it's going to the next step after this, and we can view the request. So again, all of the fields that we selected to show this person. And now they may say, all right, well, looking at this, I'm going to approve it. And they click the approve process. That update has been completed. I'm going to X out of here. And I'm going to go back into the sheets. And now we see that there is a change automatically, and now it's set to submitted to VP. Well, I wore that hat as well. So now I have that VP request, and kind of just to be consistent. Approval request for Project Mars. This is the VP version. Oh yeah, there you go. So approval request. Please review. Oh no, this is actually for Project Mars, so this is for my last one. I want to do for Venus. So I had submitted it twice. Here are, as the person doing the approval, this is the confirmation that I approved it as the manager. And this is letting me know again that it's been approved. And now, here we go. Here is the information to the VP. Here is the approval request to the VP. So now we can go do the same thing as we did with the manager. You can say, all right, well, based on this information here, and the fact that it's already been approved by my manager, I'm going to support that decision, and I'm also going to approve. So now our manager has approved, our VP has approved. When I go back into actions, well, we have that as manager and VP approved. So it's going to automate us right through that process so that we can see those outcomes in real time. All right, so we just got approval from our VP and our manager to move forward with this request. They submitted content. Let's kind of play along in this example where they submitted content to be approved or to be updated. And now let's look at that form. Let's get into proofing. So a couple of things that I want to emphasize. I'm going to go back into my slides here, and I'm going to, excuse me for kind of skipping along a few. But a couple of things we want to call out. Within proofing, within our proofing tool, which lives on the right rail within Smartsheet, we are also integrated with Adobe Creative Cloud. Meaning if you work in Adobe Creative Cloud and you're comfortable and familiar with it, you can work in Adobe and still pull that information into Smartsheet and vice versa. So we are integrated or connected with Adobe. Also, keep in mind, again, if they are going to leverage the proofing tool, if you're going to reach out to somebody to request feedback from them via proofing, they need to have a Smartsheet account. Doesn't matter, it doesn't need to be licensed, it just needs to be a Smartsheet account, which is why we made that setting to the form at the very beginning. So I'm going to now leverage the proofing. So maybe since we got this approved here, we add in the proofing at row number 3. The proof box is the little box here with the check mark. So we're going to proof an item specific to row number 3. I'm going to click that add proof. And that's going to bring our attention over to the right-hand side. Let's try here. I don't know why it's not letting me there. Oh, maybe because we went through the approval process. So I'm going to do it on row 3 here. I'm going to upload a file. And I'm going to pull in a crew picture that I have. So feel free to kind of, if you're following along, and I believe we do have within the activity some items that you can proof. I'm not going to let me do that now. But I'm going to grab this proofing image. It's going to download it. Let me see here. Under content collaboration. Yeah. If you'd like to also download an image, we do have that in the content collaboration activity. There is an MBF Corp logo that you can download to kind of use as an example of proofing. That'll be our version 1 at the very top. And if you want to download a second version, we have a version 2 file as well. So I have now added in my first version of my item. Now what do I want to do? Well, I want to request feedback. I want to send it out to folks. What do you guys think? So let's click on the request feedback button. I'm going to send it to myself so we can see that process flow through. We could, of course, customize the message. So I do have some text here. There we go. And notice how it says Michael Salas wants you to review Project Mars. So whatever you put as your project title, or whatever the folks submitting the form put as their project title, it also gets pulled in. So Smartsheet recognizes that this is a proof for the Project Mars, for Project Mars. So I added in the requester, or hi Alex, this is Mark Lee reaching out to get your feedback on what you think about the image. Now another thing we want to be aware of and we want to consider is, are we going to allow the reviewer, in this case Alex, are we going to allow her to download the file? Maybe she needs to make some changes on her end, and therefore it would justify allowing her to have a file. Or maybe we want to leave this unchecked because we want to keep only one version of that proof floating around. We don't want other folks to have another copy that can potentially be confusing as to which one's the current form. Right, so keep that in mind. Do you want to give the reviewer the ability to download the file? Maybe you do, maybe you do not. I'm going to leave mine unchecked, and I'm going to hit send. Now note we have my icon here, an M for Michael. So you would see all the folks, if we requested it from multiple people, which we absolutely can, you would see every one of their icons here. So if it was 4 people, there would be 4 icons here. Oh, along with mine. We see at the bottom that one response is pending. So we know we're waiting for somebody to give us some feedback here. Let's see here. Oh, notifications. Yeah, there you go. So again, we get a notification that a proof has been asked of us. We would also get an email. Yep, there it is, Review Project Mars. Well, let's work on this time through Smartsheet itself. So I'm going to click on, oh, and by the way, notice we get an update letting us know that it's fully approved here also. So let's go into the proofing version, or the proofing notification here. Michael Salas wants you to review Project Mars. Let's review the proof. And now we have our image.
The Italian translation is very messing up. Proof review is
Oh,
the
no.
proof of revision. It's very different, a different meaning. I tell to someone.
We need to get you like a cheat sheet to convert it over. Were you able to kind of follow along though?
Yeah. I can.
Excellent. All right. Yeah, I never even thought about that before, but yeah, definitely slow me down if you need a moment to kind of figure out what the conversion is. But now we can kind of post some changes here. So notice I have 3 ways of kind of posting comments or recommending changes. So I might say, let's say I'll put a dot here, and I'm going to say, so I added the dot on the image itself. Now I'm going to come down to the right-hand side, and I'm going to say, let's make blue background. And I'm going to post that image or that response. I may also say, all right, well, let's use this box comment. And I might say right here, let's add a company logo. And then maybe I say with the arrow, oh, actually, should go back to that. So add company logo, I need to be sure to post that. So now I have 2 of them. And now I can go to my arrow and say, well, maybe we missed somebody in the picture. Add the coach for this crew team. And I'm going to post that. So we can use circles, we can use squares, we can use arrows to add comments into our proof. We then have those 3 comments added, and we could say, all right, well, we are going to require these changes. We're not going to approve it because we want these things added. So we're going to require changes. And now we can actually go back into our sheets. X out of here. And we have seen, actually, let's go to File and refresh. We have seen that those comments are now being added. So I'm back into the sheet itself. I see those 3 comments. Note when you hover over it, you see what you're referring to. In this case, the 3 refers to the arrow. And it says require changes. So, would you like to run through a second version? Let's go back to the activities here. And we are... Oh, yeah.
Sorry, this is something you can do with images, I imagine. All right?
Yeah. Images, you can do it. In fact, this is where I'm going to say a forward-looking statement, but we are able to proof videos as well.
Okay.
And I believe even PDFs.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, the PDF is very important. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are, I think the PDF may or may not be already in place. I know the video is coming out shortly. But yeah,
Okay.
you should be able to do all of those items.
And you do have to upload the video
Yeah.
or keep oh, so it's
Yeah.
can be
You
quite
would upload the video as well.
okay.
Upload the file. So yeah, you would probably upload it as a file. Cool. Great question. All right. So yeah, let's go into the activities and create a new version of the proof. So let's go through, or I'll give you folks 2 minutes. So again, we're under content collaboration. We've scrolled down to create a new version of the proof, and let's go through a version 2 and what that would look like. So just basically go through our same steps and ultimately approve the changes. So I'll give you folks maybe 2 minutes to kind of complete this section. And if you want to follow along and just kind of watch me build it, I'll be doing the same thing myself. So I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go back into this. Version 1. All right, it's been about 2 minutes. Were you able to find success?
Yeah, I think I
Okay,
did it.
perfect.
You,
How about you, Patty? Were you able to get through completing it?
Yep, I got it.
Perfect, excellent. So yeah, I sent it back out to probably yourself. You can
you
go.
know we have I mean I have a different image. I have the MBF Corp logo. It's not
Yeah,
your image, just to let you know.
yeah, yeah. It's gonna
That's
be
all.
yeah, whatever you'd like to upload, and MBF is certainly fine.
Okay.
And we can go back. There's my. Let's make sure. Yeah, I did for Project Mars. So there's my second one. Want to review proof. I see my new blue image. Let's assume that the coach was added, the logo was included. We do have the blue background. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, great, that's exactly what I was looking for. I might actually say that. Looks great. All set. And approve. Post it and then approve it. So no responses pending. We can get out of this approval workflow or this proofing. Go back into the sheet. We will refresh. Oh, no, actually we have that here. There we go. And now we see, looks great, all set. So we have now proofed our first image, and we may want to shut it down. So a couple of things we can do here actually. We see that we're looking at version 2. I can still go back to version 1 if I wanted to. So you can see all of your version history. You can see the proof over time. And then when we're done, we could come up to the top as well and click proof completed. Now it's telling me you cannot make any further comments. You cannot review any further. I'm going to hit OK. But that simply means you cannot proof any further if it's closed. But we can just click on it and reopen it. So it's not permanently closed. As long as you close it, you are then closing down anybody else from making any further comments. But it has been closed down, and we have gone through our proofing process. Excellent. So with that, let's get into our final activity. So we got folks proofing images. We have forms being filled out for those requests. We have the approvals being submitted accordingly. We now want to kind of think about this project from the perspective of our designers. So they are going to be working within, this sheet. And I'm actually going to assign myself here for the sake. So let's say I'm assigned a design as a designer. And again, excuse me for wearing a lot of different hats here, but now I'm putting on my designer hat. And I'm going to be coming into this sheet periodically to see those that are assigned to me. And if I have 100 different requests here and varying designers being assigned to these requests, this may be a pretty busy sheet. So what I want to do is I want to streamline this view for my designers to make it easier for them to view their specific requests. Right? Kind of focus in on just their creative requests and nothing else. So we can do that 2 different ways. First, I want to create a filter so that when I, as a designer now, I'm putting on my designer cap, when I, as a designer, come to this sheet, I only see my tasks or my requests. So I'm going to create that filter off the toolbar up in the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to click on filter. I'm going to name it. We'll call this my tasks. The naming is optional. However, always recommend naming it because if you build out multiple filters, and that's very easy to do, you are going to want to know what the filters do, right? And if you don't have any names for them, it kind of gets a little confusing in terms of their functionality. So I'm going to call it my tasks, something kind of obvious. And I'm going to say when rows, specifically when the assigned designer is one of current user. So no, I'm not setting it to Michael Salas. I'm not setting it to just me. I'm setting it to current user so that whoever that current user is in the assigned designer column, they're going to see their tasks. So in my case, I should just see this one since I'm only assigned to one of these requests. Another thing to keep in mind when we're using filters, if you are an owner or an admin on the sheet, not only can you create the filters, but you can share the filters. If you're an editor on the sheet in terms of permission level, you can create a new filter. You cannot share it. So if you're the one kind of driving this process and setting this up as the admin or owner, I would certainly recommend sharing this filter so other people can access just their specific assigned request. So let's click apply here. We see my lonely request sitting here, which is good, because as more and more populate, again, I don't have to worry about other folks' tasks. I can just focus in on mine. But in addition to that, maybe I don't like this view. Maybe I think it looks a little better in one of our other views. Specifically, going from our grid in the upper left-hand corner, our grid view, over to the card view. So have either of you used the card view before?
I have not.
I have sometimes, yes. I have sometimes.
Yeah. So what the card view does, and everything really in general comes back to your source sheet. So it says, all right, well, we have this request here, and instead of having it put into a row, we're going to have it put into a card. And now the convenience of this is that this card, well, actually the card view in general, before I get into that, the card view is set up based on any columns off of your grid that are set up as a single select dropdown. So our status column, if I go into a cell, I can select one of these items. This is say right-click the column header. This is a column property or column type single select. So I can leverage this column within my card view. So as I go back to that card view, we see there it is. View by, we're viewing by that status column which contained not started, in progress, and complete. So why I think this is a little easier to use for folks is that they can see the card, they can see all the card information, and they can say, all right, well, this is my task and I have started it. It is now in progress. Notice that my filter is still being applied here, so I only have to worry about assigning my projects. And I can use some of the other single select drop-down columns. So I can go by approval stage or the manager's email, which is only one. Maybe not the best one there, but really request type. Is this a new created request? Is this a content edit or update? Maybe the approval stage. We can say, all right, well, maybe this went right to the manager and they approved it. It skipped over, went right to the VP and they approved it, and it skipped over everything else. Well, we just bump it that way. So the card view makes it really kind of intuitive in terms of taking your task and moving them across statuses within single select columns. And now if you're looking at this card and say, hey, well, maybe I don't want as much information on here. I want to streamline it. Well, I come up to the right-hand side of the toolbar and I can view the card as a compact view. Now we just see the project title. Or if you're like me, and I'm one where to think, the more information, the better, I'm going to return it to full view. And in fact, I'm going to go one over to the gear and I'm going to include more fields. So we can include up to 9. Looks like we got 6 so far. So let's add in a couple more. Maybe I do want to see the approval stage. Maybe I want to see the description, the audience. Let's add in those fields. And now when I click OK, they have been added to my card. You can also uncheck those items and make it, maybe you just want 2 specific fields to display. So you can have as little or as much information on this card as you'd like. And this is also, keep in mind, dynamic, right? So as this request is going through the approval process, it's going to update. It's going to say, all right, approved by manager MVP, or declined by manager, whatever those outcomes are. You will see it on this card in real time. and hit OK.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Is there a way to define the single select field from another smart sheet?
Oh, yeah. And pull it into this sheet.
Yeah, right. For example, I have one sheet in which I have a list of name that changes maybe, and I want to select from another sheet this list of names depending of, for example, the other people that put the names in from a form, you know?
Yes.
So it's like in Excel, you know, in Excel you can select from the other sheets and decide which are the fields. I couldn't find this feature in Smartsheet. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know if it
okay.
exists or
So
not.
that's really gonna come into play when it comes to formulas. You're going to be able to reference another column and pull in those values. And in fact, we will actually get into that in a moment. Yeah.
Okay, thank
So
you.
the index match formula, if you're familiar with it, would be the one that we can leverage, and I can certainly break that down for us.
Okay.
Great question as well, though. All right, so yeah, let me make one more change to this screen here, and then we'll jump into the index match. So we've set up the My Task filter. We've set up the view to card, but we want this to be the default view for all of our designers that come into the sheet, right? Because if they're going to leverage this card view, I don't want them to have to go from the grid and change it over to the card view. I want them just to open to this. Not only that, if they come over to the right rail, they can see their proofs here as well. So really everything they need to see should be on this screen, and therefore I want to set this as the default when folks are coming or working in this sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the sheet to somebody. I'm going to share it with our designer, which we had deemed Mark Lee. And now I'm going to drop down to and now when folks come into the sheets, when I share Mark to this sheet and he eventually jumps into it, he's going to see only his creative requests in this card view and still be able to access his proofs. In fact, all of the designers that I share the sheet with would have this same card view with the filter applied. Excellent. All right. So let's get into index match. So the archive, I will speak to that. That's pretty straightforward. So I will actually come back to that activity, but we're going to actually talk about the challenge activity. Let me get that pulled up really quickly. Boom, boom. Bear with me for one moment. There it is. There we go. All right. So, there we go. Okay. Perfect. So what are we doing here? Well, we are going to automatically retrieve the email of a requester's manager. All right, because right now, as it stands on the form, actually I'm going to go back to the grid for this, the manager's email is going to be added by the person filling out the form. I'm going to turn off my filter here. Right? And now that is a mandatory field on the form, but that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody can't just put in something like NA, not applicable, They could just put in any kind of text, and now you don't have a manager's email. All right. So instead of being reliant on the requester to submit the manager's email, why not just automate that process? And to do that, we would need to build another sheet that would have those manager requester relationship built out. Right? So when the requester is Michael Salas, who is going to be their manager? We need to have a separate sheet to have that association linked. And that's where, as I go back into the template set, yes, I like to save. That's where this team contacts sheets comes into play. We see Amy Harrow. She's one of our requesters. There's her email, her phone number, and her manager. In fact, if you click into that, I'm going to say, Michael, I'm actually going to put my email there. Yep. So when the email is Michael Salas, then I'm going to say that, let's add somebody new. Let's add Tim Trainer. Tim Trainer is going to be my manager. So as we have it, let's save this. So again, you should put yourself there as your email address, assign somebody to be your manager. Doesn't matter necessarily who it is. And now when we go back into our creative request intake sheet, let's build out this formula. And I'm going to build it in the manager's email. I'm going to X out of here, move that over. And I'm going to use index match as my formula to pull in that information from that other sheet. So I'm going to start off with an equals. There we go. And now I'm going to say index. And what index is going to do is going to basically say, all right, well, what do you want me to pull back? What are we looking for? All right, well, we're looking for the manager. Well, where is that manager information? That manager information is on another sheet. So we need to reference another sheet. So we have basically what we call the yellow brick road. This is Smartsheet working us through our formula. So right now it's asking for our range. Well, that range is not on the sheet. That manager information is not on the sheet. Let's click on reference another sheet. And there it is under our creative requests. There's those team contacts. And now I'm going to select the entire, manager column. Because this is what we're referencing. This is what we're looking to draw back. Who is that manager? And now it's going to insert this reference into our formula. So we want to be sure to name that reference. And how I like to insert a reference into a formula is by the name of the sheet, which is named Team Contacts, and the name of the column, which is, in this case, Manager. So I'm going to edit that, and I'm going to say Team Contacts, Manager. And I'm going to insert the reference. And you know you're referencing another sheet when you see the name of that reference in squiggly brackets. So, all right, we now know that we're looking for the manager. And as I add in a comma here, well, how are we going to know what manager to include? Well, we're going to know by matching, and this is where I'm going to use the match function. we know because I'm going to match the requester's email on this sheet. So I clicked into the cell and added in the requester's email. There. So match the requester's email at row, comma. Well, we're going to match that to, let's reference that other sheet again. We're going to match it to the email address on our team contact sheet. Again, we'll reference or edit the reference so that it's the sheet name as well as team contacts, which is the column name. And I'm going to insert that reference. Now, if you're following along, be careful because it puts the cursor literally right into the middle of the reference there. So you want to move that outside of that. Go requester. And I'm going to say comma 0, and actually we're good. The 0 is going to tell it to pull back an exact reference. So pull back the exact email address. And now, as we see, it's Tim Trainer. In fact, if I were to right-click the cell that I have the formula in, I right-clicked it, and I dropped down to convert to a column formula. So now it applies that formula to the entire column, and we see that represented as a formula symbol right underneath the column header, and it's locked those columns, so I can't come in there and make any changes because it's all being driven by automation. And because it's also a column formula, well, as the submissions are added, that automation is going to continue down. So now anytime I submit the form, my manager is going to automatically be assigned, which also means that we can come back to that form potentially and remove that field. In fact, it does skip. Yeah, that we don't need that field anymore because it's already being pulled or automated via that index match formula. I'm going to convert it back to a cell formula and grab it here. There we go. Copy and toss that into the chat. How did that sound? Did that answer your question, Alessandro?
It was not what I asked, but it was, it was interesting to understand I knew indexed, I never used indexed and match, and quite interesting. My question was a bit different because I wanted in single select drop-down menu to find the value of this menu in another sheet.
Gotcha.
That was the question.
Yeah,
like you say, you have not started in progress and complete. I wanted to get this value from another sheet. That was my question.
Yeah, you could. Let me see.
I think it's quite difficult. I don't know. It's easy in Excel because you can reference to a list of things, but I don't know if it's possible in Smartsheet. It was just a question.
I'm not exactly certain, but I do know that if it's possible, it's probably more than likely going to be done through a formula. And what I would do is head over to the Solution Center on the left-hand side, type in formulas in the search box.
Okay.
And then there's a formula sheet that I would download. And if you download that sheet, It has like literally every one of our formulas.
Great. Thank you very much.
And then you have some examples too. So I might make that your favorite and give this a look, and you'll probably find it.
Absolutely, I'll do it.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
All right. So we do have just a few quick minutes left. I wanted to do one more thing here very quickly. And I wanted to look at automation one last time. So automation from the perspective of managing those requests, actually being that we're speaking about the closed, managing those statuses that are completed, right? What do we want to do with them that once they're completed? Do we want to leave them on this sheet, which can potentially clutter up our sheets, or do we want them to move to another sheet, move to an archive sheet? So let's move them to an archive sheet so that this sheet only functions to serve as those requests or provide us with those requests that are still active. And because I want to have that archive sheet maintain all of these columns as we've set it up, I don't want to have to remake this sheet just to move in those other rows. I'm going to say File, or I'm going to go over to File, and I'm going to say Save As, and I'm going to save this as Archive, Creative Request. I'm going to come down to Automation, and I'm going to remove the automation from the archive sheet because I don't want to have our automation into basically doubling up that automation. And I'm going to come down to data, and I'm going to remove the data from the archive. So it won't have any of this information. And I'm going to hit save. So now we have our archive sheet. I'm going to go back into the creative request intake sheet, and I'm going to leverage that archive sheet, or going to add in some automation to move them over, move those completed items over. So I'm going to go into automation, manage workflows. We have one that's already been completed, move completed requests. And we're saying, all right, well, when a date is reached as our trigger, so every Sunday starting at, well, in June, and we did that by going to custom in terms of our occurrence or reoccurrence. We said every week on Mondays, starting, well, we could say starting today and ending never, we are going to take those requests that have a status of complete as our condition, and we're going to move them to our archive. I'm going to hit OK. And now we have updated that. And that, in fact, we see that it's gray here, which means that it's disabled. So I'm going to enable it and make that active. And now, as our last step, once these get switched over, once these get switched over, they will then get moved over to our archive sheet. That oddly takes sometimes a moment or two to actually move over, but it will in fact archive. All right, folks, so that is the top of the hour here. Again, as a quick recap, we've built out our form for the submissions. We also got into the manager workflow approval. We did a little bit of proofing. We set up our sheets so that it has that default view, the card view for our designers. And we built some automation from the perspective of automating our archiving, as well as automating the manager's email. Any other questions before I let you all go?
I think I'm good.
I'm all right. Thank you very much.
No problem. All right, then. With that, I'm going to stop the recording. Yes.